So John wants to know, Professor Wolters, what's the toughest part of taking attendance in your class? Well, for those who don't know, I actually have some pretty big classes, sometimes up to 650 students in a classroom. So taking attendance sometimes can be a little complicated. And yes, you can do little dingers, and you can have people sign up stuff with their phones to log in. But you'd be surprised how many students really kind of cheat the system by giving their friends their dinger or their phone to log in for them. I mean, you're like, oh, and how do you control for that? That's the biggest thing. Is controlling for the students that aren't actually there, but send their devices or their checklists or their attendance sheets with their friend to turn in for them. Like that's the toughest thing, is to find those people. Okay, that's why sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually, I'll go through and I'm like, that handwriting looks really familiar to this other person's. And you actually catch people that mess up because their friend didn't give them the right email address, or their friend didn't give them the right student number, so that's messed up. And I'm like, when a student misspells their name, I kind of assume that it's not them. And if they have a problem, usually they'll email me. And that's another thing that makes it difficult with the attendance, are the emails I do get. Because I'll get, 2 or 3 weeks later, a student like, oh, I could have sworn I was there that day. Really? You could have sworn you were there that day, and you only realize now that you might not have gotten your attendance point that's been in for 3 weeks or something? And it really happens a lot towards the end of the semester, where a lot of students will write like, oh, I could have sworn I was there that day. You asked a question about X. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's actually listed in the assignment, for the attendance point. It says what it was. So, yeah, I don't really think so. And usually when students do that, I know they're lying, and so they don't actually push back anymore. It's more like, some students I have a picture of it. I'm like, no, you have a picture of it, but it doesn't prove that it's you. Because there'll be students, I've had this before, students will take a picture of the attendance question I give, and they send it to their friends, and they put it on Reddit or QQ or Renren or whatever. They put it all over, and then people will show it to me. And I've actually had students show me the same picture that I was there. See, here's the picture. I'm like, really? Because your friend has the exact same picture. And another person showed that same picture. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, unless your face is in there with it, I'm not going to go for it. That's why I had one student in mind. She's like, I don't want to take any chances. So literally every time we did an attendance check in class, she'd come up and take a picture with me. So she had it. She actually made a video on Instagram of the highlights from it. So that was kind of funny. So making sure the students aren't cheating with it, that's one of the toughest things with it. I think, and then the sorry emails that I get later. But honestly, probably the toughest thing for me and my graders is actually reading bad handwriting. Please, make it so we can at least make out that number, your student number, because your signature, okay, I get that, but when they ask you to print your name out, make it so we can at least understand it. That's another thing that's really difficult for it. So yeah, those would be one of the kind of things, the toughest parts about taking attendance. But I will say, I do love when I ask questions of my students, how forthcoming and honest they are when I ask them, hey, what's a question you have about marketing? What's a question you have about student life or just life in general? Students really open up. And so that's why we try to answer some of those questions in class. I make these videos to help answer students' questions. So if they have a question, we can be like, hey, here's the FAQs that students like to ask. So yeah, so it's a tough thing to do, but it's a fun thing to do. And I really like doing it because honestly, I learned so much more about my students, which is helpful because when you have a class that can be up to 600 people, it's hard to get to know your students. And this way, I feel like I can kind of identify with them a little bit or get to know them a little bit better just because of the information they share in their attendance checks. So I know that's a long answer for a short question, but John, I hope that helps out. I'll say bye from here in Brazil.